looking for investments, if you're on that round and you're speaking to investors or you're undertaking any form of transaction, why it is really important to have your intellectual property ship shape and Bristol fashion in a way that you can present and present easily and cover the key aspects and questions and areas that your investors are probably going to be asking and looking for. Please feel free to ask any questions as we run through the webinar. It will take about 45 minutes. There'll be plenty of time for questions at the end, but also please do ask as we go along. You can put chat into the box there, and I should be able to see it. So a little bit about me. I've been around for a while. I focus very much on intellectual property strategy, patent strategy, IP audit, valuation, monetization, brand and social media, and I'm very, very keen on trade secrets. I've got a background in big corporates, Procter & Gamble, and consultancies, Accenture, EY, and other businesses, fast-growing IP businesses. I bring a whole breadth of experience covering the whole 360 degrees, as that very nice quotation says in one of the materials I shared, 360 degrees of intellectual property. So the key thing to recognize and to apply to your own business is that we are living now in an intangible economy. We're no longer in the business of property, plant and equipment. We're now in the business of people, process, platform and code. 26 years ago, the vast majority of the value in any business was probably tangible and connected to property, plant and equipment, easy to value for an accountant. Now it's something that you can't readily identify because you can't see it and you can't pick it up. You can't bang your leg on it, you can't scratch yourself on it. It's intangible. I'm talking about people, process, platform and code. 80 to 90% of the value of any business is captured in those items. I guarantee it. Even some of the most impractical businesses, when you look at them closely, they are covered very much in their people, process, platform and code. And the way I represent it from an IP component is I talk about BRICK, BRICK, brand, reputation, innovation, creativity, and knowledge. And the brand encapsulates a whole different range of things. It certainly incorporates people, to some extent process, and possibly some code as well, and possibly the platform. But ultimately, it's about the brand and brand equity. It's about the marketing. It's about the content. It's about your website domains, your social media presence, and your trademarks. And these are fundamental aspects of any business. So brand is fundamental. Reputation takes ages to build. It's so easy to destroy reputation in a business. So being a guardian of that reputation is really important. As an investor, would like to know that you're on top of that. You're not going to be holed by negative comments on social media, that you are surveilling and able to pursue any negative comments on social media to maintain the value of your reputation. Consider the erstwhile Ratner's jewelry company in the UK, the ill thought through and ill-considered comment at the CBI dinner, where the then chairman of his company, named after himself, was asked in jest, how could he sell jewelry or earrings cheaper than it cost to buy a prawn sandwich? And his response, the prawn sandwich would probably last longer than our earrings. Now that comment destroyed his business. Within a year, the share value had dropped 90% and he was out of business. That one comment. Reputation in tatters. Reputation takes ages to build and can be shattered in an instant. So managing and monitoring that is really important. And you know what I mean, because we're also used to looking at Google reviews and restaurant reviews, etc., before, whether we believe them or not, before we go out and spend our money. Now, that's the same thing I'm talking about. Now, if you think about it, this aspect is so easily attacked these days. We're probably all familiar with Twitter farms that President Putin put together to influence social media and people in the Western world. No different from wars gone by. The media battle. It's so easy to utilize that same methodology and vehicle to destroy and damage reputation. So monitoring it and managing it and keeping on top of it is really important. Loyalty, customer retention, fundamental aspects of any business. So this is intangible. So we then move to innovation and creativity. Process, yes. Platform, yes. Yes, patents, yes, trade secrets, yes, technology, yes, designs, yes, key staff, yes, innovation incentives, yes, the ability to monetize the above. Many businesses claim they are incredibly creative and innovative, but when you start to ask the questions about how it's captured and how it's protected, they're less innovative and creative in terms of how they are actually maintaining and managing that aspect of their intellectual property, their intangible assets. What then do I mean by knowledge? By knowledge, you know what I mean, because in your business, you have substantial know-how, stuff you've learnt over time. You know how things, you know, what doesn't work. You know what does work. You know how and why. It's sometimes difficult when you go into a manufacturing plant to actually ascertain what really makes something work. And there's a very sort of maybe apocryphal but interesting story about somebody, an individual who was responsible for a particular aspect of the toothpaste packaging process. And when they tried to reverse engineer what he actually did, he didn't really know what he was doing. He was waiting for a change in sound in the machine before he injected a certain ingredient. And he did it automatically. And he'd done it for years. And it's that aspect of know-how which is difficult to replicate, difficult to learn, and difficult to develop yourself. So those things are really worth capturing. I work with a business that lost substantial documented know-how in a fire, and they had to go back and start to some extent all over because, of course, there was a fair amount captured in people's heads, and that captures in people's heads is the know-how, the expertise. How you capture and manage that, and perhaps protect that using trade secrets and possibly copyright, is really, really important. Another aspect of that is data. Further aspects are contract and indemnities within a business. So back to the IP audit. The concept of the IP audit is sometimes difficult to embrace. You know, it's something, you know, within a business. The concept of IP is generally acknowledged to be important, but a little bit like a seat belt, a safety belt, it may be acknowledged to be important, but it's not actually considered urgent. It's not actually considered something that needs to be looked at straight away. It may not even be considered to be something that's interesting. And part of the battle, therefore, in conducting an IP audit is just the internal engagement with people and staff within the business, because you can't do an IP audit in isolation. You do have to do it across the business. You do have to do it with teams of people, and it requires a certain degree of engagement, and that's perhaps why IP audit has been delayed, possibly put off in the past. You know, people put it off until there's something urgent, such as the next investment round, such as a transaction, such as a corporate restructuring, etc. And then it becomes more urgent, and there's definite need to do it within the business. But by putting it off, you make it much more difficult. So if an investor comes to look at your business and he wants to know how you are managing your intellectual property and how you're managing some of your most valuable assets, don't forget 80 to 90% of the value of your business is intangible, protected by IP. Not being able to readily present that is a weakness, and will be seen as a weakness. It'll be seen as a management weakness. Oh, the IP, yes, here is the comprehensive inventory or list of all our intellectual property. This is how it supports our competitive advantage. These are our registered. This is our registered IP. This is the database where we keep our unregistered IP, such as trade secrets. And this is a landscape of what's going on in the environment and how we perceive opportunities and risks. Now, that just looks incredibly well organized. And if you're on top of your IP and you're top of your IP due diligence, then it's going to be a tick in the box. There's a strong indication as to how well run your business is. So first and foremost, the key is to have a list, of all your IP assets. So where we're going with this today is at the end of the session, and anybody who's registered and attended will be offered a free 30-minute review, IP review of their business. Not a full audit, but a review, so we can identify some areas that might need further recommendation, further involvement, further action, further review. And likewise, I will be sharing a white paper on IP audit, the key steps on IP audit, the key aspects for all those who were in attendance today. Likewise, for those who are further interested beyond and above those 2 points, there will be opportunities to engage the IP audit process. And why I'm particularly excited about this IP audit process is that it is a combination of man and machine. It's a combination of expertise and machine. So, for example, it uses IP strategy expertise in conjunction with very well-trained AI tools. This results in an efficient discovery and evaluation process, faster results, and the ability to draw out necessary and important recommendations and insights much more easily and quicker than would otherwise have been the case. Furthermore, these tools can be used to flag or to identify value benchmarks and possibly to flag risks, pinpoint risks, red flag risks within the business, and or exposures that need to be mitigated or managed within the business. So it's I'm very excited about this combination of IP audit, the man and the machine, because I think it's a game changer for IP audit. It makes it more accessible, more available to people wishing to undertake such an important step in their business. So yes, first and foremost, I would say getting a list of all your IP assets, including formal and informal IP, plus other intangible assets. And the other intangible assets I just outlined with my brand, reputation, innovation, creativity, and knowledge. So yes, all the branding, digital branding aspects, the reputational loyalty, customer reviews and PR, etc., and management of that. And then the innovation and creativity and the outputs of that, such as patents and trade secrets and copyright, etc. And then the know-how, how you're managing know-how and expertise, and how you're protecting that within the business. So in a modern business, data assets, proprietary software code, and brand equity are probably some of the most valuable components of any business. So having a list of all the IP assets, people used to just put a list down of the patents they had and the patent applications they had and the trademarks that they had. We now look at 25 distinct types of intangible assets and draw on those to create a review and overview of the IP within the business. Very important also is ownership. Are you the rightful owner of these fundamental aspects within your business? Because proving that is so important. And you may not be surprised, but 20% of formal IP, registered IP, has incorrect ownership details attached to it at the intellectual property offices. That is substantive. You wouldn't find that in buildings, in houses, another form of property. Generally, those are, within a couple of percent up to date at any one point in time. 20% of IP rights are incorrect, but claiming you've got ownership of know-how and trade secrets requires a little bit more effort, contractual proofs, etc., than other forms of IP. So having details of ownership, a list of IP, details of ownership, and then the scope of that IP, the details of it, the design, how the designs cover your platform, etc., how your patents protect certain aspects of your products. Really important. I would say the next step is going to be IP policy and IP governance. And I can almost hear you yawning at this. And why is that important? Because having those in place, but not just written as a document, of course, they need to be ingrained and implemented within the business. Evidence that that's ingrained and implemented within the business, that you have an IP harvesting process, that you have an ability to capture your existing IP and your ongoing IP as it's created and developed, and then a review process to decide whether it's a patent or a trade secret or a brand or whatever, is really, really important. A policy that identifies how you deal with IP infringement, somebody infringing your IP, how you can respond to somebody accusing you of stealing or infringing their IP, and how you will respond should there be a situation where you believe somebody's infringing yours or has misappropriated your valuable intellectual property. Really important, because time is of the essence. If your trade secrets have been misappropriated, you need to contain that really quickly before it's spread like wildfire and your trade secret is out and lost and devalued. And then you're firefighting after that. So the list, the ownership details, and the scope are important, as is having policy and then a sort of audit or governance process to make sure you're managing all of the above in an efficient fashion. My next recommendation is going to be people. I think IP and the value of IP starts and finishes with your people. And I'll tell you why. If those people are trained to understand intellectual property, and let's be honest, most people aren't, and I'm not passing judgment because most of us have got a fair amount of number of years of education. I think I've got 17 or something in total, including a 3-year degree and a 1-year full-time master's in business, actually, MBA. And nowhere along the line was IP mentioned in any great detail. It certainly wasn't taught about IP and the different components of IP and how it is used to protect the vast majority of value in a business. So the education generally within a business around about the different forms of IP is really generally poor, which means people are not capturing and protecting IP in any efficient or sufficient manner. And ideally, what you're looking to achieve is to have people identifying key components of intellectual property, capturing it, valuing it, protecting it, and managing it on an ongoing basis. Because if you can get all your people doing that, there's less likelihood of leakage or loss. One of the biggest risks to any business these days is the internal threat. It's the inadvertent misappropriation of valuable information. Your next financial data information, the fact that you're about to make a merger approach to another company, you're about to launch a new product. So know-how, as discussed, what that is. Oh, that guy, he knows how to inject the right ingredients on the because of the sound of the machine. That's a trade secret, possibly. Valuable information, something your competitors would give money for, good money for, to learn about and to be able to replicate, because it saves them some time and effort and energy and investment to get to that point in time. So if you can get people on board, your people on board through training and developing an IP culture within your business, then you are going to be in a much stronger position than you would have been otherwise. The next aspect, people always say to me, well, how do I identify the most important IP and intangible assets in my business? Well, the answer is quite easy, but you really do need to know what provides you with the competitive advantage in your business. What is it that gives you an additional margin? What is it that drives your revenues in your business today and into the future? Because if you can identify those aspects, then you can start to identify how, what underpins those, what are the valuable components of those, and how you can protect them. So this is probably the most fundamental component of the IP audit, is to understand, what is your competitive advantage, what distinguishes you from the competition, what would they most like to get their hands on, what would they most likely like to ask one of your key employees when he's had a few sherbets on a Friday night down the pub. What would they most like to set a honey trap for, to get to the information to get hold of? And believe me, these things are underway. If not by your competition, your direct competitors, they are underway by other actors within the ecosystem. So your biggest threat is your internal, the internal threat from your employees, and identifying your competitive advantage and building a business strategy that protects that is really important. It's not just about having the right IP, the right patents and trademarks, so those are really important. It is about having trade secrets and designs and copyright. It's about having contracts. It's about understanding your competitive advantage and understanding what underpins each one of those components of competitive advantage, and how you can use it to protect the business, how you can use it to protect the value within your business, short, medium, and longer term. So then how do you use business strategy to protect that? What is it you're going to do with your business strategy to protect that competitive advantage? Well, clearly, you need to have IP, protected with patents and trade secrets and copyright if it's innovation, for example. And then how are you going to deploy that? So if you're going to launch in the US market, for example, are there some risks? And what are those risks? Are you at risk of being sued by a competitor, by somebody who sees you as a threat, by somebody who just sees that you've just gone through a funding round and sees that you've got money and wants to wants to get an access to some of that money? These things are all reality in the United States, and in sharp relief. Less so perhaps in Europe, but certainly gathering pace in Europe and certainly in the rest of the world. Games that people play with regards to competitive advantage in intellectual property. So what is your strategy? How are you going to protect yourself? Are there ways and means that you can go to market through partner? Having got access to somebody else's IP through acquisition or in licensing or something that gives you protection and or mitigation against some of the risks that you might have identified with regards to that movement into that particular market, product, and country. Which leads me to contracts. Contracts are probably the least thought about when it comes to IP, but if you think about it, if you've got an employee by the name of John Pryor and he's joining your company, the employment contract around about the IP that he's going to generate within your business is really important. Making it clear to John Pryor that everything he creates within this company stays within the company. He can't move to the next company and take what he's learned or what he's developed with him. And likewise, we don't want IP contamination. We don't want him bringing other IP into the business. Really important. I don't think anybody understands how important that is, because with the rapid rise of trade secrets and trade secrets infringement, we are substantially looking at a significant rise in. I think the biggest settlements now in the United States, growing in the rest of the world, in intellectual property litigation are in trade secrets. You regularly see a trade secret litigation. Somebody came worked in my business and they ran off with some valuable information and they set up in competition. Running into 100, 200 million and even billions of dollars in terms of settlement. And given the political status of the world with regards to the incoming president of the United States, tariffs, and so on and so forth, I anticipate that trade negotiations will also include further strengthening, because trade secret law has been strengthened substantially over the last couple of years, of trade secrets law to make it criminal law in as many jurisdictions as possible, which means that if I were to leave this company and take with me some really valuable information, it could be commercial information, it could be M&A targets, it could be pricing and profitability, it could be new product launch information, or it could be innovative and inventive information. If I take it to a new business and start to utilize that in that business to their advantage, then I would be liable to trade secrets infringement cases. And arguably, if it's criminal law, which it is in the States, it's criminal law, and now in the UK, in the cases of international espionage, China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, industrial scale theft of IP through hacking and people and impersonation and reverse engineering of people. These things are all reality, and that is criminal law in the UK. So if you're found guilty of that, then you do serve jail time. So contracts for employees really important, but contracts also for your customers, suppliers, your whole supply chain, really important, particularly around about IP, ownership of IP, and IP indemnities, and getting all that in place is really, really important. It's something that an investor should be looking very, very closely at. What are the IP risks? So one of the big IP risks, if I'm a technology, an innovative business, is going to be the landscape. Do I have freedom to operate? Can I launch my product in the United States at this point in time without there being an issue of somebody else popping up and saying that's all well and good, but you are actually infringing our patents or our trade secrets or our trademarks, and therefore you can't operate, you can't go to market with that product name, you can't go to market with that technology. You need to do something different, or you need to pay us a license fee, which is probably going to be substantial. So risks and understanding the lay of the land with regards to risks is really important. And there are mitigations for those risks, such as IP agglomeration entities, which will just sound incredibly confusing to you. IP insurance, IP in licensing, IP cross licensing, and of course, patenting around substantive risks, for example, and working around them as part of your strategy. So risks are a fundamental part of understanding your IP landscape. And why is that an issue? Because this happened to one of the Sony PlayStations. They were about to launch a couple of years ago, and they suddenly became aware of a patent liability, a patent infringement risk. They didn't have freedom to operate. It took them a year's delay in the launch of such a software item is substantive in terms of revenues and values and so on and so forth. So having a good understanding of the landscape and your ability to go to market is really, really important. What are the opportunities? Does your IP provide you with opportunities? Does it give you the ability to block competitors? Does it give you the ability to charge a toll, a license tax to others in the marketplace? Uh, you know, it, when Microsoft looked at their IP, I think it was just their patent portfolio actually. They decided to focus on certain key countries and they abandoned some patents, but they also saved themselves $5 million per year on patent renewal fees and prosecution fees just by doing an IP audit, just by looking at areas that they possibly no longer needed coverage, that they could felt they could save money on. And $5 million to a company like Microsoft is possibly not that significant. Certainly significant to a company like yours, or a fast growth technology entrepreneurial startup, uh, innovative startup. So opportunities abound. And then finally, what is the return on investment? You've got your IP, you've spent money getting to this point in time. What is the return? It's a really important question, because if you're not covering it, you'll be blindsided by a CFO question. A new CFO is always going to ask these questions. Why are we spending so much money on IP? Why are we spending so much money in this area? What are the tangible benefits that I'm getting from this? What's the qualitative value? What's the quantitative value? Can you demonstrate a return on investment? And unless you've thought that through and you've got a good answer to those questions, you risk the diminishment of the IP program within the business. Whereas I would argue that it's far more than just a seatbelt. It is fundamental to the value of the overall value of the car, not just an important safety aspect, but fundamental to the overall value of the car. Because without it, you can crash and burn, and you don't want to do that. So, part of this IP audit process is going to be giving you actionable insight, something that you can work on today, tomorrow, with a sense of high, medium, and low urgency. So recommendations and easy to follow steps. And most of all, these steps have got to be something that can be integrated and implemented within your own workflow and within the culture of your business. Because otherwise, we all know that doesn't work. There's nothing worse than having something that doesn't warrant implementation, easy implementation. So, having that outlined again is a reasonable part, an important part of the IP audit, being able to represent that to investors, that you've got a plan, an IP roadmap for the next year, and how that's going to protect you in terms of where you are today, what the current and future risks are anticipated to be, how it allows you to expand overseas, to launch new products, and so on and so forth, is really really important. Another component of risk, which I haven't mentioned, which I just need to quickly, is we're all building our businesses using software, and generally we're building our businesses using open source software. Now, that's all well and good, but if I'm an investor and I look at the open source software and its license, sometimes that license means that if I built my code using that open source software, I'm essentially allowing everybody else in the open source community to have access to what I've built. It could be just one line of code that I've borrowed that's open source, but it means they get access to everything I've built using just that one line of code. And that's a fundamental value diminishment aspect from an investor perspective. Because if everybody, thousands of users within that community, have access to your code, it's not really proprietary, and it doesn't really warrant too much value, and it becomes a risk item rather than a value driving item. So understanding the risks around open source, the licenses around open source, are really, really important, and capturing what they are and how you can mitigate and manage those is so important. Because a quick aside, we've all heard one of the second most famous men in the world at this point in time, Elon Musk, talk about patents as for the weak. Patents are for the weak. Well, Elon has got a lot of patents. What he wanted to do, I think, through that statement, you have to read between the lines because he's ultimately a very big games player. And he actually is. He does spend half of his evening, I think, playing computer games. He is a big games player. He's playing games with his IP all the time. He wanted to standardize charging, EV charging, and he wanted to provide access to the community for his EV charging technology. Now, what people didn't realize that when they were signing up to that access to his patents was that they were also providing him and Tesla and his other businesses with access to those patents. So if I borrowed one of his patents and built something else, some technology on the back of it, I was essentially providing him with a right to utilize whatever I built. And that's not always explicitly clear, and it's not something that you hear in the PR that's stated. But you do have to be extremely cautious about all of these aspects of IP contracts, and particularly around about IP licenses. The other part of Elon Musk trade patents off for the week is that he is a very strong user of trade secrets, and he has both patent but a lot of trade secret litigation underway at any one point in time. In fact, famously at the moment, is suing one of his suppliers, working on a rapid charge. It's a rapid charge or green charging technology. They clearly had to reveal their Tesla IP to this supplier, and the accusation now is that that supplier's gone off and used that technology to the betterment and benefit of other people who are interested in batteries, either in the electronic vehicle or in other areas. So that's a trade secrets theft case that's underway at the moment. And so the question coming in. Thank you very much, Michael. So Michael actually has a question, and Michael, very, very, very pleased to follow up after this call with your question. I know you've got a lot of experience actually, and I'm not sure this is directly your question, but a lot of experience in the trademark area. Choosing the right name before you go to market is so important, and making sure that it's not a name that's going to cause problems down the line. Too often people want to go to market with something that's the trademark people call descriptive. The best coffee shop in town. I'm not saying you do that, of course, but something that's descriptive rather than distinctive. The issue that we all face is that if I'm Facebook or I'm Meta, or I'm LVMH, Louis Vuitton, if somebody comes to market with a name that's similar to mine, I've got an army of trademark lawyers looking for something to do. And one of the things they have to be seen to be doing is stopping inadvertent use of LV or Meta or Facebook or Facebook or LV's Garden Centre, because otherwise they are at risk of those names becoming genericized, and they don't want that. And so, as sort of nitty, picky, malicious you might think it is that these trademark lawyers send you really nasty letters sometimes, they're just doing their job. They have to be seen to be protecting the name, the brand of the business that's out there. So trademark and branding is a really important, probably one of the most valuable aspects of your business, and doing the research and thinking in advance, and before you get carried away, that emotional sort of surge of energy that you get because it's such a great name. It's a great name for the year that you go to market. And then, as with the very successful clothing company, the name escapes me at the moment, something like Resolute from Manchester, they had the rights to trade everywhere, or so they thought. And then they were hijacked by somebody in Europe who said, basically, you can't trade in Europe under that name, because I've got it. And I think he actually went out and registered it and put a little business together so he could hold them to ransom. And that he did. He went into 7 figures. They went into 7 figures before they could actually. A year later, they bought the rights, and 7 figures in, cost them a lot of money. Something you can prevent happening by doing the research and doing the work preparation up in advance. So thank you very much for attending. We're now close to the 45 minutes. Please feel free to ask me any further questions. Just checking. Sorry, there might be another one. Yeah, does this approach apply in any sector? Yes, it does. You can use it in software, financial, technology, AI, product, medical, services businesses. The combination of the IP expertise and the AI tool does work in any sector. Is there a good time to do an IP audit? There's no time like the present, but I would say that anyway. The sooner you start, I would say, the cheaper it's going to be, because you will build and retain more value in your business, and you won't make errors that might cost you, further down the line, in terms of, repairing your name or spending money to buy the trademark in certain jurisdictions, etc. So the sooner you start, the better. And it doesn't have to be too engaged if you're at the early stage, but it's definitely worth doing. And of course, the price for this it does vary according to the size of your business. Please do get in touch for a free 30-minute review, and we can see. I will provide as much value as I can in that 30 minutes around about your IP, and then we can move on from there. If an IP audit's right for you, fine. We can look at whether I can do that for you, or you can get somebody else to do it, or whether it's just not right at this point in time. But my concluding remarks are that an IP audit for me, and I think for investors, demonstrates that you've got good IP governance. You are preempting potential issues, and it does illustrate that you have got strategic value in your IP, and that it is important to the future success of your business. It's also a very good indication of the management of your business. And I think demonstrating how your IP works as underpinning your value proposition, your margin, protecting your competitive advantage, helps build trust with investors and increases the likelihood that you will secure investment now and into the future. So thank you very much for your time. Do appreciate it. Please do feel free to ask me any questions beyond the end of the webinar. I think you've got my email details. I will certainly be in touch with everybody who's attended and registered, and please feel free to follow up with any questions, and also to arrange your free IP review. And I will also, as I said, send on the white paper on investor-ready IP best practices for tech companies. The easy IP audit. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good rest of your day, and hopefully speak soon. Bye now.